Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at how we're going to set up the stack size of the abilities and also to make the abilities appear from right to left rather than it keep pushing all of the abilities around. And also we're going to set up the initial images and also the progress bar for our XP. Let's get started. Let's talk about the ability size. Now, right now, if you're able to actually collect as many abilities as you want, and it just keeps going. If I have more and more of those cones, I can keep getting more and more. But if you remember in Diablo, you get a total of 6 abilities that you get to play with, and that's all. So we want to actually restrict our players to getting only 6. Now, in your game, you can choose to do 7, 8, 9, whatever the case may be. You just need to update your HUD to reflect that space. So it should be able to fit all 8 of them in a straight line, or you can even have this 2-line setup. But we're going to do a 6 stack size for our abilities. To create a stack size, it's pretty straightforward. In our player blueprint, we're going to go ahead and create a maximum stack size or a max stack size. And this will be a type integer. This tells us that we want to have a maximum of 6 abilities. So in coding, the number counting always starts at 0. So we need to always, reduce our total, what we need, by 1. So if I want 6 abilities, I need to set this up at 5. So when it starts at 0, 0 is actually counted as your first ability. So 5 would be your 6th ability. And one more thing that we also need is to see what is our current stack size, right? So this will actually tell you how much abilities that we have in our stack. How do we manipulate this? First things first, we're going to go into our base. We want to increment the stack size, or we want the player to be only able to pick up the item and destroy that cone, destroy the ability or make it like, consumed type of situation, only if our current stack size is not at the maximum stack size. To do that, first we're going to go here and then search, get the maximum stack size, right? And also we're going to get the current stack size. We need to check every time the player goes and picks up one of these, we want to do this check. We want to say if our current stack size is less than or equal to our maximum stack size, right? If it is less than the 5 or less than 6 or equal to 6, we want to go ahead and allow them to create the actual ability. So if I were to go and say, hey, if it is more than or less than or more than 6, we should be allowing them to pick up the item and also destroy the item. And every time they pick up the item, we want to create a little functionality here saying, hey, we need to increase our stack size. So we need to get our current stack size, increase it by 1. You can just say increment, which is by, you just search plus plus and you will get an increment, integer or float. We're going to do the integer here because it's a whole number. And we're going to go ahead and say set stack size. So we're going to get our current stack size, increase it by 1, and set that as your new stack size. So there you go. And then now we plug it into the code. So this should work like we expect it to work. So let's go in there and then check. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th one you won't be able to pick it up because we already reached our maximum stack size. So that's how you do the stack size. You can go here and you can actually reduce it or increase your stack size. If I were to set this to 2, then as you know, it's 0, 1, 2, which is 3 numbers. So it's going to allow me to pick up 3, 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one I won't be able to grab it anymore. So you can actually restrict the players from getting additional abilities, make this as a requirement for the XP that they need to have before they can get a 4th ability, or even a level up requirement or an objective completion, whatever you like, and then you can make the stack size into a editable integer through other blueprints. So you can increase their stack size or reduce their stack size based on how you want to reward the player. we have created the stack size. And now one more thing that we need to do is, if you have noticed, whenever we pick up the ability, it's always pushing the ability forward or from right to left. It's pushing the ability and then the new one is taking its spot. In game, this is not going to look very good because you want the players to have a keybind set on one side of the screen, and you want that keybind to stay there. You don't want that keybind to keep moving left and left, and it just gets confusing as the player gets more and more. So what we want to do is we want to fill this bar instead of going from right to left, pushing all of the abilities. It's going to go right to left, but it's going to actually take a look at which slot the first ability is in, and then it's going to fill it up in a reverse order per se. That's the easiest way to do it, rather than trying to, assign slots and trying to figure out which one's where and all of those such. We're going to just go ahead and do the fill in a reverse order, and this way, it will look like you're getting additional ability added from right to left. In Diablo, you get the abilities added from right to left. So let's go and get that functionality done. To get that functionality completed, we need to do that into the player HUD, because this is where we are actually, the functionality for adding the child to the code actually comes in. So we need to do a couple things here. First, let's move this child. Before we add the child to the container, we need to do all of our setup to do the reverse order. And one of the easiest way to do a reverse order is to add all of these abilities into a container, and then take a look at what's in the container, and then pick out each and every single ability one at a time in a reverse order, and then add it. It makes a little bit of sense as soon as you see it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable here. I'm going to call this the child or ability container. No, sorry, we can't call it ability. We're going to say the child container. And this would be of type the icon, the ability icon that we created, object reference. Compile and save. And we're going to make this into an array because you're going to have a total of 6 abilities and you don't want to manage them all one at a time. So we'll manage all 6 of them at the same time. So we're going to get this child container, and we're going to say every time we create an ability, we want you to add it to this child box. Okay, let's disconnect this. You can press Alt on your keyboard, and then when you click on a connection, it will actually disconnect it for you. And you can use Control, and you can actually move the connection around if you hold down Control and move it. Just a quick tip there here as well. So once we get the ability created, we're building the ability, and we need to add it to the tray. So the tray will, the array, the child container will now remember what abilities you have received. Now, there's another functionality for this array that can be beneficial for you, is add unique. Now, the add unique function will only allow you to add a single type of the ability into this container. Now, right now, when we go pick up an ability, you can pick up the same ability twice or 3 times. If you use this function add unique, then the game will only allow you to add a unique ability into this container. So if you pick up 2 Fire Blast, you will only end up having 1. This could actually be a very good game mechanic where when the player gets a second one, you can convert that into a gold rather than giving him the ability. It's kind of like, something that you find again and again, and then you can just give them gold instead of actually giving them the ability. We're not going to do that here. We're going to just work with what we got. I'm going to delete this, and I'm just going to add a regular add box. Once we add it, every single time, because we're going to go and resize or reinitiate our entire ability tray, we want to clear the children of all our container first. We want to get our ability container and let's clear all the children. This way, there is no abilities on the tray when it starts. And every time this function fires, every time a new ability is received, it's going to clear our existing tray, and it's going to redo all the numbers, and it's going to go take a look at what's the last one, and then it's going to start populating onwards. So it will make a little bit of sense right here in a moment when you see how this works. But we do want to make sure that we clear the children because we don't want to build it on top and it gets really confusing. And now what we're going to do is, because to get an item from the array, you need to have an index. Index is basically the position of the item inside of an array. This array contains, like if it has 10 items, each item is going to have an index starting from 0 all the way up to 9. So we want to get that index, and this is how we're going to say, hey, get the last one or get the first one and such. So we're going to say current index. Oh, can I? Okay. And we're going to make this into a type integer and make this into a single integer because we don't want it to be crazy or anything like that. Once we get the current index, we want to set this current index. Sorry, we need to set this current index. So we want the index to be as big or the size of this child container. So we're going to get this child container, get the length of the container, which is basically asking the child container, hey, how many pieces are inside of you? And then we get that length, and then we're just going to add it to the current index. So if you remember, when the game starts, you have no abilities. So that means your child container is sitting at 0. Actually, it's sitting at -1. And we want to make it so that our current index is also sitting at -1. Now, we're going to use something called a while loop because if we cannot really do a reverse functionality in a for loop, so we're going to do a while loop. Now, we got to be very careful with the while loop because if this while loop will run forever. If you do not put in a proper condition to stop this while loop, it's going to run forever, and this will create stability issues, and it can also lead to the game crashing. So you want to make sure that the condition is clearly set. Here we want to make sure that the condition is if it is greater than or equal to 0, we want to continuously keep running this while loop. What that basically means is if the child container has 3 abilities inside of it, then our current index is going to be set to 3 as well. So as long as the current index is above 0, you want to take the while loop and use this to do some functionality by adding the child in a specific order. So to continue on the functionality, we're going to get the child container again. And this time we're going to do a get function. So we're going to say, hey, while the index is less than 0, I want you to go and get one of the abilities at the current index. Remember, our current index is the total length of the actual child, which is the largest number. So this is the last index number that we have in the child. So if it has 4, this current index is set at 4, and that means this is the 4th ability that you got, not the first one. It's the 4th one because we're filling it up in a reverse. And what we want to do here is we want to now get that current index and then add that to our child. And this will be the part of the loop body. Whatever the last index is that's available, we want to add that. And once we add that index, we no longer need that index. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that current index, we're going to subtract it. Subtract 1, well, minus is 1, it subtracts 1. And we're going to set our new index to this. So it's going to go through this. If the index starts at 4, the while loop is going to, as long as the correct index is at not 0, it's going to go through this function and it's going to keep running it until this index gets to less than 0, which is -1, which is null. That means everything in this container is taken care of. And every time it goes through the function once, the index is going to go down by 1. And then we're going to get the third item from this box. And then if we're going to add it, and then we're going to reduce the index by 1, then it gets the second item, then gets the first item, and so on. How that looks in the game is this. I'll go pick this up. Now this is my first item that I've collected. And if I go pick the second item, usually the second item pushes this first snowball to the left side. But if you look at it now, it actually populates it on the left side of it because we're filling it up in reverse. And the third item, fourth item, fifth, sixth item picked up. And now we have a stack size again, so we won't be able to pick those 2 up. And now this looks much more cleaner than the entire array getting pushed over from left to right, from right to left. As soon as the array index keeps getting subtracted 1 by 1 by 1, it's eventually going to get a -1. Then this functionality would trigger and the while loop will break, and that will stop this adding of this additional child, which is what we want. We want to break this while loop through some sort of functionality. Now, Unreal does have a built-in check. It checks to see if your while loop is going to run forever. and it will actually prevent you from actually running the game if you don't put in proper conditions to set this while loop to a fail node. Okay, so one last thing that we're going to do today before we close off the video is we're going to actually create this XP bar. So let's get on with that. I have gone ahead and created a little XP bar type. I could show you. I created this using some images. I added them all together, and then I created this little bar functionality. I will, again, my Patreons will actually be able to access this image in my Patreon. So we can go ahead and now we have the ability box here. Now the ability box looks great. Let's go ahead and add a couple abilities in here so we can see how it looks like. So it's easier for us to work with. So if I go ahead and paste, 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 and paste. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Um, in game, it kind of like makes it so that it's in a straight line, but here, because the box size is so small, the horizontal box size is so small, and then the anchor, we didn't set up the anchor properly. That's why in the game it allowed you to actually go inside. In a straight line instead of having to go into the second line. We're gonna just stretch this box out a little bit, and then we're just gonna get that, and then we're gonna set up the anchors properly here. Okay. Now, in the Diablo setup, we noticed that right above the ability, we have the XP bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that XP bar in here. We're going to go to our ability manager, go to our material, and then here I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it imports. And then in the imports folder, I'm going to drag and drop ability XP bar that I just created. Easy as that. And we're going to go ahead. Now the horizontal box already has an ability bar on it, so we can't really do much with that. We're going to go and we're going to wrap this horizontal box in an overlay box. This way, it will allow me to actually add more and more items to this entire HUD. We're going to go ahead and just stretch it out so a little bit. Oh, sorry. We need to make it, oh, weird. There we go. We just need to make sure it's centered, and it's like that. And then this overlay, which we're going to push it back out again. Shouldn't have erased it. There we go. Compile, save. Now that we have the overlay, we're gonna rename this like I mentioned before. This is going to be the ability box, right? And we're gonna go ahead and save it. Now we search for an image. Actually, before we go for an image, remember we can usually just use a size box. Put a size box into this, and then we can rename this to the XP bar. And inside of the size box, we're going to put an image. Oh, yeah, there we go. Now this image, if we look at the image, if we look at the Diablo image again, it stretches from the beginning to the end of the XP bar. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take this image, and we're going to take the size box, and we're going to override the width of the size box short. So we're going to make it like 615, 614. This is just so much trial and error. There we go, 612. Wow, weird number. And this image, the image that we just created, this is our image, and we're going to go ahead and set this as our brush. And you get this. Now this is not, it doesn't look too bad, but at the same time, it doesn't look that great because it's kind of like skewed a little. We can actually, I believe we can increase the image Y size here, not the Y size. We don't want that. We want the X to stretch out a little bit, but because the box itself, the size box itself is big as this, it's not going to stretch out any further. So we can actually stretch out our size box to make it much more better. Let's make the overlay much bigger, right? Take this ability box and then center it, right? And this XP bar, Now we can go ahead and reduce this XP bar so it's nice. Actually, we'll just center it. Oh, sorry. Center on the top. Now that should help us to line this up perfectly. Okay, that ought to do. Let's see how this looks in the game. That's how it looks in the game. I know the ability icons just shifted a little bit. We can fix that. Okay, I'm gonna go with that. Let's see how that works. Okay, but so we're gonna do just a padding and then say pad it to like maybe a 10. Yeah, that looks good. Compile. Now if I were to press play, you have this, and inside of this XP bar, we'll just take a progress bar. And then just add it in here. What if I wrap this with the size box? Take the size box, say 100. Oh, this would be like 20. Yeah. And the size box top padding would be like 15 maybe. Okay, 20 is good. We're gonna make it go from the left. And also we will fill this up. Actually, center would be good. And we're gonna do the width override to fill it all the way to the end of these bars. Okay, there you go. And we're going to take the size box and we're going to put it above the XP bar, so the XP bar sits on top of the size box, and it looks like that. Compile, save, and in Diablo I know the progress bar is actually yellow or like a golden orangish color. If I were to go increase the percentage, you'll notice that it goes up like that. That works perfectly fine for us, right? And we're just going to make this a little bit darker. One quick fix that we're going to do is click on the ability box and let's make sure that the horizontal alignment is filled horizontally, and the vertical alignment is in the middle. And we're going to set a right padding of 100 and a left padding of a 90. So this brings the actual start and end point of our box to align with the XP bar on the top over here. This one we can actually move it up a little bit, so we can do like a 95, I would say. Maybe a 90. There you go. So that actually does that as well. Additionally, let's make sure that on our ability container, we have both of them alignment vertically and horizontally is set up to fill. And the inside of the content layout, we're going to set the horizontal alignment to the rightmost align. This will make it so that when you pick up the ability, it will start from the right side and it'll make its way inside. All right, with that being said, I think this is a great spot for us to stop this video and progress on to our next part. Again, thank you everyone for joining me today in this video tutorial series. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to drop it into the comment section below and I'll sure to get it. Thank you folks for joining and have yourself a great day. Thank you.